to order. Welcome to meeting number 5 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. I'm going to forego the usual rigmarole here and just go straight to welcoming the witnesses. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on October 27, 2020, the committee is resuming its study of the backlog of disability benefit claims at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Welcome to all of the witnesses who have taken time to join us today. I will list you all off here. First of all, appearing as an individual, Robert Thompson. From the Department of National Defense, we've got Brock Hillman, Chief Informatics Officer, Canadian Forces Health Services Group. From National Police Federation, we have Brian Sauvé, President. From Veterans Review and Appeals Board, we have Christopher McNeil, the Chair, as well as Jacques Bouchard, Deputy Chair. Each of the organizations will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks, and after that we'll proceed with rounds of questions. I will be signaling when you have a minute left, both in your opening remarks as well as during the questions. I'll signal that there's a minute left just by holding up a finger. If you see that, don't panic. A minute's a long time, and I will give you an opportunity to finish your thoughts. First and foremost, we are going to start with, I believe, Mr. Thompson. You are up first for the first 5 minutes. They're all yours, sir. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I believe I was invited to appear before the committee due to my contacting Ms. Lalonde with regards to my veterans disability benefits claim. So, Ms. Lalonde, I thank you very much for that. A bit of a history on myself. I have served in the military for 30 years. I am in the process of being medically released. Medically released due to injuries, obviously incurred during my service. And the claims that I have submitted, I have 3 claims submitted currently. The first one was in September of 2019, actually 2 in September of 2019, and 1 in December of 2019. At the time of my applications, I was given a wait time of 52 weeks. That has long passed now, and I still have not heard back from Veterans Affairs on a solution, what I'm going to be receiving as part of my benefits. The last time I talked to them, they said it could be another 64 weeks before I hear back from them. 2.5 years is too long for a veteran to be waiting for the benefits that they are due. After serving our country, signing that dotted line saying we are going to give our lives to the country if we are asked to do so. And it's demoralizing on the part of the veterans that they have to wait so long for this to happen. I made a couple of posts on Facebook just saying that I was going to be talking to the committee today, and most of the posts or comments I received back were, why is it taking so long? Families are going into debt because the member has been medically released, but it is taking a year and a half, 2 years to get any benefits. And some people are having to find work, even though their medical doctors are saying they should not be working at all because of their injuries. But the veteran has no choice in the matter, because if they don't work, then everything collapses at home. They cannot afford their home. They cannot afford their utilities. They cannot afford food. With the extremely long backlog of the benefits and claims and applications, veterans are suffering more and more, and it does not seem to be getting any better. I know the government has said they were hiring more people to work on the claims. We are not seeing that as veterans. All we're seeing is extended wait times, extended delivery times on what the government has promised us. And I, for one, I just had my left knee totally replaced. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had my left knee totally replaced. So I am no longer able to even clear my driveway this winter with snow, but I am not able to get onto the Veterans Affairs VIP program, which would provide assistance for that, because my claim still has not been adjudicated on. So I don't know how I'm going to survive this winter without this being cleared up. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And before I proceed, I want to thank you for your service. And it's people like you as to why we are here today, debating this, discussing this, and making sure that we can move forward. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Up next, we have, excuse me here, we have Mr. Hillman, or Hillman, from the Department of National Defense, Chief Informatics Officer, Canadian Forces Health Services Group. The next 5 minutes are all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. Thank you for the invitation to discuss elements of the Canadian Forces Health System and our strong working relationship with Veterans Affairs Canada. My name is Brock Heilman, and I am the Director of Health Informatics and Chief Information Officer of the Canadian Armed Forces Health Services Group. My responsibility insofar as the transition of CAF members to civilian life is in the transmission of a service member's electronic health record to VAC once VAC requests the record. Our electronic health record, known as Canadian Forces Health Information System, is available in all our clinics as well as on deployed operations and aboard Navy ships. As you know, CFHIS is an important platform enabling team-based care and integrating different departments into clinics like primary care, mental health, dental, and physiotherapy. It also facilitates care to our highly mobile military population, as the health record is available regardless of which military clinic a member attends. CFHIS is also a useful tool in sharing medical information with VAC. As you know, over the past couple of years, the CAF has worked very closely with VAC to create the technical, privacy, and logistical conditions to allow VAC adjudicators direct access to CFHIS files for CAF personnel who have applied for VAC benefits. Nous sommes en train de mettre en œuvre une...
We're currently undertaking a project, the Electronic Health Record Project, EHRP, which will modernize our electronic health record while at the same time assisting us in the provision of enhanced decision-making technologies to clinicians, advanced analytics throughout the CAF, and personalized point.
I'm hearing it as well. The volume of the translation and the volume of the speaker are the same. So it's just overlaying, and you can't make of it either, unfortunately. Can we, Mr. Hillman, can you maybe speak in French a little bit and let's see if they can fix this on the fly?
Sure. Nous sommes en train de mettre en œuvre une initiative, le projet de dossier de santé électronique.
So, Mr. Hillman, on the Zoom, I maybe the clerk could advise, does he have to select which language he's speaking in? Oh, and now we've lost his video.
Thank you. If it's an older version of the Zoom, then yes. If you could just go to the globe that's
It's done.
at the bottom.
I've done it.
Oh, you've done it? Okay.
Can we,
So
we
let's
test
try
it one
that.
more time? Try a few words in French, please.
We're currently undertaking a project, the Electronic Health Record Project, EHRP, which will modernize our electronic health record while at the same time assisting us in the provision of enhanced decision-making technologies to clinicians, advanced analytics throughout the CAF, and personalized patient experiences to all. Though we are at the early stages of this project, we hope to deliver this significant enabler within the next few years. The Canadian Forces Health Services Group is committed to the provision of high-quality care to protect and optimize the health of military members and to ensure that those leaving the forces are able to medically transition back to the provincial and territorial health systems as smoothly as possible. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, sir, and I apologize for the technical issue. We're all still just new at this, so thank you for your patience. Up next, from the National Police Federation, we have Brian Sauvé, President. The next 5 minutes are yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to appear today. I'm Brian Sauvé. I'm the president of the National Police Federation. The NPF was certified in 2019 as the sole bargaining agent representing close to 20,000 members of the RCMP across Canada and internationally. Earlier this year, VAC reported a 150% increase in the backlog of applications for disability claims. This backlog directly impacts RCMP members, as VAC is responsible for providing disability benefits to serving and retired RCMP officers. All factors that contribute to the backlog
not wearing a headset, but he's got his cookies, so
assessed. To deliver timely and appropriate solutions, this process should include tangible benchmarking to mitigate the effects of the current backlog. I'd like to highlight 5 recommendations that the committee should consider while undertaking this study. We put forward a submission to the committee that outlines further detail on these recommendations. First, to fast-track applications for clients who are medically at risk or have urgent health needs. In March 2019, there were over 16,000 RCMP disability benefit recipients, a 38% increase over the past 5 years. Forecasting shows that the number of RCMP members receiving a disability benefit will continue to increase about 6% annually, and by 2024 could reach over 21,000. Second, we'd like to ensure future application processes are streamlined for both online and in-person interactions to meet service standards. One of the primary challenges contributing to the backlog is that VAC is unable to meet its service standards. For first-time RCMP applicants, the standard is 80% of applicants processed in 16 weeks. Today, only about 33% are processed within 16 weeks. Most are taking 6 months or longer. Third, I'd like to simplify the decision-making process for typical medical conditions and implement a system to efficiently approve the most common disability claims. The most common conditions for the RCMP are post-traumatic stress, tinnitus, and hearing loss. Over the past 5 years, there's been a 69% increase in RCMP members claiming psychiatric disability and receiving disability benefits. The growing demand for mental illness-related support is a positive indication that more members are seeking help. Efforts to destigmatize and encourage member outreach and support for mental health conditions have clearly been effective. The federal government's provided significant funding for mental health resources and made a commitment to advance OSI treatment and care for first responders, as outlined in the speech from the throne. Now, government must deliver and fulfill on those critical commitments. Fourth, we'd like to ensure staffing levels over the next 5 years are in line with forecasted client needs, while providing sufficient training and specialized staffing to deal with more complex cases. In 2016, the government reopened previously closed back offices to facilitate access to critical services. Guaranteeing access to these offices is key to ensuring timely assistance in addressing the growing backlog. As of March 2019, back offices across Canada had assisted more than 13,000 RCMP members. We ask that policies consider and reflect the needs of each member applicant. RCMP members represent about 10% of total applicants for disability benefits at VAC, and current VAC policies and training are more focused towards the CAF than the RCMP, which creates a focus that does not always serve our members' unique needs. And lastly, regular and proactive review of all data and reports available through VAC and the RCMP in order to identify emerging risks and provide sufficient resources to mitigate them going forward, including how implementation of new government programs will impact applicant intake. In conclusion, the backlog at VAC is in part a result of its own success in expanding services for veterans and RCMP members and in destigmatizing mental illness. This accomplishment will ultimately save and improve the lives of those who have chosen a career in service to Canadians. We remain concerned over the recent PVO report, which assesses recent federal investments and reiterates that additional supports and investments will be needed to decrease the backlog. Our members and all veterans deserve efficient access to disability benefits. Doing so provides necessary and timely support to them and their families. Thank you, and look forward to any questions.
Thank you very much, sir. And up next from the Veterans Review and Appeal Board, Christopher McNeil, Chair, and Jacques Bouchard, Deputy Chair. 5 minutes, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee members, for the opportunity to appear here today. You know, as the chair noted, I'll share my remarks today with my colleague, the Deputy Chair, Jacques Bouchard, and just for the record, I should also note that Jack is a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. I know this committee understands the important role that the board plays in ensuring that veterans and their families receive the benefits to which they are entitled. But in short, we provide an independent appeal process for those who are dissatisfied either with the denial of their claim or the extent of that the disability that has been awarded. Essentially, our program provides 2 levels of review. The first is a review of the initial VAC decision. And second, if members remain, or if veterans remain dissatisfied, we offer a second level of appeal of the board's decision. Although the thing to remember is that veterans can always come back to the board with new evidence or new arguments, regardless of the time involved, and have a previous decision reviewed. The board, like all aspects of the disability benefit system, has been challenged at times in meeting, that ensuring that we deliver decisions in a timely manner and in the language of the veteran's choice. Today, we want to share a few things that we've been doing and to overcome those challenges. When we appeared before you a few short we could not have imagined how the pandemic would affect how we service veterans and how we ensure that they get the benefits to which, you know, I cannot praise the staff of the board enough. In a matter of a few short weeks, we transitioned from a bricks and mortar operation to a totally virtual or remote operation, and that would not have been possible without the unwavering commitment of staff to veterans and their families. Throughout the pandemic, we continued to operate. We processed claims and issued decisions since between mid-March and today we've issued more than 1,700 decisions. However, we have had our challenges, and the biggest challenge was the ability to hold in-person hearings. Although we've transitioned, and I'm pleased to say we transitioned to through the use of technology such as teleconference and video conferencing back, you know, we have sort of transitioned to start, but in October, we began incrementally again, where sort of public health protocols allowed us to in-person hearings again in a very incremental stage, and that's an important part of our process. I'm going to actually turn it over to my colleague Jack at this point to sort of take us through some of the specifics of what we're doing.
Merci, Chris. Monsieur.
Thank you, Chris, committee chair and honourable committee members. It's a pleasure to join you this afternoon. Since July 2018, it has been a board priority to create greater access for all veterans and their families. A key to this has been
having the same difficulty.
I'm
wondering if you can take a look at the screen and the globe there. If you can click the language that you're going to speak in and see if that fixes it.
I think it should be fixed as of now.
Okay, give it a shot.
Okay. Donc,
So since July 2018, it has been a board priority to create greater access for all veterans and their families. A key to this has been moving to a more veteran-centric and less formal environment. For example, as we introduced to you during our last appearance in the spring, we've implemented a simplified hearing process that groups together less complex cases involving similar issues, such as hearing loss or tinnitus, allowing us to significantly increase our capacity to hear a higher volume of cases in a shorter period of time. We believe that the simplified process holds great promise in assisting with the pending cases on other levels, including with Veterans Affairs, the Bureau of Pension Advocates, and the Royal Canadian Legion. And we believe that we will be able to strengthen our capacity and go to better decisions. At a time when demand continues to increase. One of our priorities is to effectively manage the request from the ministry. In addition to current issues, we are also looking at the delays in Francophone requests. We are committed to ensuring that there is a prompt treatment of these files, and we have contributed to increasing our processes, improving our processes to better serve Francophones and ensure language balance. On behalf of the President, and in my name, I would like to reassure you that we continue to be determined to ensure that veterans and their families receive the benefits they are entitled to in the language of their choice and to the best of their needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of the witnesses for being succinct in your comments. We're going to get going right away into the first round of questions. And up first, I believe we have MPC back for 6 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Quickly, I just wanted to ask my first question to Robert. Robert, my understanding from your testimony today is that you were medically discharged, and yet you still have to go through a process and fight for your disability benefits. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
I don't even know what to say to that. You're being told you're medically unfit, but then you have to wait 52 weeks or who knows how long in order to receive your benefits. And I apologize for that on behalf of Canadians.
Thank you.
I want to talk to Mr. Heilman briefly. So the project you're talking about with digitization of records, is that part of the increasing processing of the backlog that the minister has talked about? He's been talking about digital solutions as if it's going to make a big difference in dealing with the backlog. Is what you talked about today the same project that the minister was talking about?
Personally, I can't speak to what the minister was talking about. What I can talk to you about is the efforts that we've undertaken so far to close the gap. And recently, last year, we actually extended, for the first time ever, Canadian Forces Health Information System directly onto the desktops of 6 VAC adjudicators in Charlottetown, so that they would be able to directly access a member's medical history. What that did was it took away the requirement for us to go digging in our electronic system for health information to send to VAC. What that didn't help was the fact that most of our military members still have a portion of their health record on paper. So what we have undertaken now is when a member requests their health record, we will digitize it at the base and we will upload it into the Canadian Forces Health Information System so that VAC will be able to access it electronically, and we don't have to rely on the mail system anymore to be mailing files from bases to Ottawa, then Ottawa to Veterans Affairs.
Okay, and I'm not aware of any other project that the minister could be referring to, and the fact that you're testifying today makes me assume that this is the project he's talking about. So I have a couple of questions about that. How long until this digitization project you're undertaking will be completed? Do you have an internal estimate?
I don't have an estimate. The onus right now is on Veterans Affairs to set the conditions at each of their locations, along with National Defence, obviously, to get the National Defence networks located in the locations where Veterans Affairs has their adjudicators. So we are working jointly to establish National Defence location. We've done a great deal of work in Charlottetown. We've sent them out computers that are prepared and ready to go to access the National Defence Network, CFHIS. Took a team out to Veterans Affairs in Charlottetown and undertook at elbow training with the initial group of adjudicators. So we are well on our way. But in order to get a better metric on exactly where we are, that would be a question for the IT folks at Veterans Affairs.
Okay, so you don't have an estimate of when this project would be completed. You said, it's in the early stages of the project and something about the next few years. You don't anticipate this digitization project that you're working with VAC and CAF will be done in the next few years?
Let me clarify that there are two projects underway within Canadian Armed Forces Health Services Group. The first, the project that kicked off first, was the modernization of the Canadian Forces Health Information System. And that is a project where we are looking at our current electronic health record and modernizing it to bring it up to the same equivalency that one would find in their provincial jurisdictions. The second project, a separate project, is the extension of that electronic health record directly into the hands of our friends at VAC.
Okay, so the second project, who's in charge of that project?
I'm in charge of it, working alongside VAC.
And so when will that, because that to me seems to be the important project, when's that project going to be completed?
I would hazard to guess, well, we most certainly expected, had it not been for COVID, that we would have been well underway already. We've already got Veterans Affairs adjudicators directly accessing Canadian Forces Health Information System. So the first steps are absolutely underway. Okay, and
but when's the completion date?
Well, actually, sir, it'll never be completed. Okay. Because every time a new adjudicator comes, we will have to train them and get them up to speed on CFHIS. So it's not a project that I ever see finishing. What I do see is that we will continue to work with Veterans Affairs to ensure that they have direct, unfettered access to members' medical files for those members who request adjudications.
Do you have any internal studies or reports that look at this to say how much this is going to improve the efficiency of the VAC department? Because the minister talked about how digitization is going to be a big game changer. For example, an experienced reviewer can process 17 cases per month. We heard that last week. Would this increase that to 20, 25 cases a month, or you have no idea?
That is a question that would be better suited to VAC.
Yeah, we're actually at time, but okay. That's a quicker answer than I was expecting. So thank you. Thank you. And now over to MP Amos for the next 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses. I'll be sharing my time with Sean Casey. I want to get into the issue of attribution. And I would like to get the perspective of our witnesses today on the issue of whether or not it would be so much more helpful if the Canadian Armed Forces automatically provided Veterans Affairs Canada with the medical diagnoses that supported a decision to release a member for medical reasons, and that this be done prior to the date of release. If we could explore that theme of the diagnosis, that would be helpful. So maybe we start off with Mr. Heilman.
Yes, I am in no way positioned to discuss attribution prior to or after release. What I can tell you is that the moment that a diagnosis is made by a clinician in the Canadian Armed Forces, it is entered into CFHIS. So at the point that they click the mouse, it's in the electronic health record.
Are there any other witnesses who would like to comment on that particular issue?
Well, I think historically there would have been a problem, not so much in the diagnosis, but historically, you know, CAF doctors were reluctant to sort of give any opinions or diagnosis, particularly as they related to VAC applications. Now, I have experienced in the last year and a half that changing. You see a lot more CF or CAF documents where they are assessing people or giving a diagnosis. So I certainly have seen a more loosening of that trend in the past year and a half to 2 years.
And you would view that in a positive light?
Well, it is often the only, you know, veterans and particularly currently serving are not in a position to get doctors to give those assessments without that. So that if they are being served by CAF, they should be getting their diagnosis from CAF.
Okay. Just as a follow-up to that question, this will be my last question. As was announced in 2018, has the Chief of the Defense Staff issued a special directive for commanders to more diligently complete the report of injury, disease or illness form, the CF98 form, which would make it easier for CAF members to, for Veterans Affairs Canada to attribute a medical condition to military service? Is there progress on that?
CF9, we see lots of CF98s, but you have to remember the CF98 often is prepared from the extent of the military. It is not determinative of whether or not an injury arises from a perspective of the board will make a decision, although the CF98 adds some perspective to what happened, but an accident can occur not in the context of military duty, but still be attributable to military service and benefit. So the CF98 is an internal document and it provides some evidence, but is not a definitive document. What is helpful is when they provide assessments and provide diagnoses for people who are making applications.
Thank you. I'll cede the floor to Sean Casey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amos, and Mr. Chairman, thank you to the witnesses. I'd like to direct my first question to the witness from the Police Association, Mr. Sauvé, I believe. You mentioned in the course of your opening remarks the impact of the closure of the district offices across the country and their reopening in 2016. I wonder if you could speak a little further to that in terms of the impact of the closure of the district offices on your members.
Well, it's really the impact of the closure was short-lived, thankfully, but it was really the impact of the reopening that had the greatest impact on our members. And, you know, as I mentioned, just in 2019, in those 3 short years, you had 13,000 members since they had been reopened who had received service or care through those offices. So the fact that Canada is such a large country and the RCMP and the membership of the RCMP, as well as a lot of the membership of the Canadian Armed Forces, serve everywhere. We need to keep that in mind when we're talking about service delivery that's dealing with the hearts, the minds, and the souls of people who gave service to Canada. So.
Thank you. Another thing that you mentioned in your opening statement is that this backlog, in one sense, the department has become a victim of its own success. I know that many people wouldn't see it that way, including Mr. Thompson. Can you just expand a little bit on what you meant by that?
Well, I think so. I can't speak to the Canadian Armed Forces perspective or the marketing, because of Veterans Affairs or the My Back account, for example, in the RCMP over the last 9 years or so, there's been a concerted effort to actually raise awareness and do a campaign within the serving membership as well as the retired membership, or those who are retiring, through transition interviews to make them aware of what may be a condition where they can apply for disability benefits into retirement or while they're still serving. So from that perspective, in the RCMP, it has been a success. We have seen definite market growth of members becoming aware and making an application and gathering medical information which they weren't used to, or they not normally had, and the trend is that it's going to grow and continues to grow 5 to 6% per year. So that is obviously part of the challenge right now. More applications, not foreseeing that it would grow as it has, and now you do have a bit of a backlog.
Thank you,
Mr. Sauvé.
thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you. And now over to Deputy Desilets for 6 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Chair. My first question is for Mr. Thompson. Thank you, obviously, for your service. And simply, don't you think that the delays in the compensation paid to veterans have a harmful effect on recruitment to the armed forces?
On recruitment, I can't speak on that. It may, if a potential recruit sees that veterans or long-serving members are waiting years to receive any benefits for injuries or incurred during their military service, it might put a second thought into the recruit's mind whether or not to actually join the forces. In that, if
Si je vous pose la question autrement,
if I could ask it a different way, in your case, your personal case, with all the delays and all the frustration that I heard you talk about, and would that make you hesitate or not want to enroll again in the Army?
Personally, no. I'm carrying on a tradition followed from my grandfather, who served both in the First and Second World War. Great uncle who served in the Second World War. My father served for a little while as well. No, it would not have discouraged me from signing up. I did it on my 17th birthday. I joined as young as I could, and I've loved every minute of it. I'm sad that I'm having to be released medically, but I would not have changed anything. I probably would have submitted my claims much earlier if I knew it was going to take this long, so that I would have some benefits when I do actually retire. But now I'm almost about to be medically released, and I'm still waiting.
So you wouldn't necessarily be discouraged by what your personal experience was with regard to bureaucracy and the compensation, because it's something you're entitled to. But would you encourage or discourage your family members, for example, or friends, to join the Army?
I would encourage it because for the most part, it's been an enormously great experience. You're signing your life over to the country to serve your country.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm very happy to hear that. Mr. Thompson, you've heard of the concept of approval, rapid approval. This is a concept that's seen to be discussed more. And do you have any ideas about this? Would you be in favor of this?
On the simpler cases, absolutely. In my case, these, I would say at least 50% of the Canadian Armed Forces and probably a good portion of the RCMP all have knee problems due to their service. This would be something that should be, in my opinion, fast-tracked because you can't operate with your out your knees. You can't walk. You can't do almost anything without your knees because you have to move around. Fast-tracking other things like depression, stuff like that, that gets into a little more more specifics, and I don't think fast-tracking something like that would be of benefit. You have to make sure that you're covering all the facets of that case. But with knees, tinnitus, I think fast-tracking would be an option that should be definitely looked at.
J'aimerais ça vous entendre.
I'd like to talk about the transfer of files when you're in the Army. Then when you then transfer to Veterans Affairs. And when you're transmitting the information and to various ministries, is it an easy process? I know it's difficult, for example, for confidentiality, but I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Very brief answer, please.
Well, in my case, it took 4 months for the CAF to transmit all the files, to get all the files from my personal doctor to Veterans Affairs. And that's apparently when they start the timing. They don't start timing when you first apply. They start timing once they've received all the paperwork. And if that takes 4 or 5 months for a CAF and other doctors, then that just increases the wait time and the pressure on the member.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. Now over
Merci
to
infiniment.
Thank you very much.
Blaney for 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all of the witnesses for being here today and sharing your valuable testimony. If I could start with you, Mr. Thompson, first. First of all, I want to thank you for your service, and I also want to thank you for coming and sharing your personal story with us. One of the things that I've heard from the department and specifically from the minister is the solution they see for people who are waiting an extended amount of time for their benefits is the Veterans Emergency Fund. I'm just wondering if that is something you've accessed or if you know of or have been talked to about to help bridge this period of time.
Honestly, you mentioning it is the first time I've ever heard of it. So no, I've never, I haven't even thought about it because I didn't even know it existed. The only thing that I did know existed was the VIP program, which I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but you can't access that until your claim has been approved by the department.
Well, thank you for that. That is something that I'm definitely interested in hearing about because I've heard this as a solution. I'm glad you've heard about it, and I encourage you to talk to your person, your caseworker, to figure out if that's going to be the right fit. That was an incredibly powerful answer. Thank you. My next question is to Mr. Sauvé. Thank you so much for your testimony here today. I don't have time to talk about how much respect I have for the amazing work in my riding of the local RCMP, but I spend a lot of time with them and really appreciate it. So I appreciate you being here with us today. One of the things that we've heard from a lot of veterans is that the COVID-19 pandemic has really resulted in challenges for people who are applying for their benefits to get in with specialists or other medical professionals. So there is a concern that although the department is currently seeing a much lower application amount, that we're going to see a significant amount come as COVID comes to an end. I'm just wondering if you are seeing anything similar.
I like your optimism as COVID comes to an end. A lot of people would say we're going to be with this for a long time. No, I haven't seen that, haven't heard that. But what I would say, so from an RCMP member's perspective, obviously there has to be an injury in service first, and then a permanent disability in order to make an application. So I think what you will see is is that as our members, if you're talking about COVID-related injuries, we've tried to get a presumptive diagnosis agreed to from the RCMP that because you were working right through COVID and the impacts of COVID, that should there be a respiratory ailment down the road, that there's a presumptive diagnosis expediting that. We're waiting to hear back on how the RCMP will look at that. But I think what you will see is you will see an increase in retroactive applications down the road through Veterans Affairs, because I think through COVID, people just aren't paying attention, or they just don't have the time, or they'd rather focus on family and things outside of work and things that have to deal with work. So when COVID is done, I'll share your optimism. I think you'll see people start to refocus on what their benefits are and what they can apply for, and as they go down that road.
Well, thank you, and I agree with you. COVID's going to take a while. I just wonder, with that incredible backlog we already have, having people delayed in their ability to fill out their applications, we could see a huge increase at that time, which will just add to that backlog. One of the things that you talked about earlier today was just having the amount of people there to do the work. The PBO, of course, did a report at my request, looking at what was happening with the backlog and what we needed to see moving forward. And they suggested a substantial amount of new hires to get the work done. One of the things that has been most concerning to me is listening to the minister talk about hiring temporary folks rather than permanent long-term folks. And I'm just wondering if you share that concern.
I do. I don't know if I share it from the same reasons. I would share it mainly because as any organization hires people to do its service, there's a difference in commitment level with respect to temporary and permanent full-time. So, you know, having someone come on temporarily, working part-time, casual, perhaps the commitment level, the dedication, the focus on the training, the knowledge, the abilities to apply that is not as deep for that employee as someone who is a full-time dedicated person. So that's the concern that I would share there.
Thank you so much. Mr. McNeil, it's always good to see you. I've enjoyed our conversations in the past. If I could just go back to that original question that I asked of the last witness, just around, we know that so many veterans are not being able to access specialists because of COVID. They're not able to access medical professionals to help prove the concerns and the health issues that they have. And so we're seeing the amount of applicants going in to the department go down. I'm just wondering if you're seeing anything that's reflecting that, and if you have any concerns about what it's going to look like in the future as veterans sort of get into this backlog that's largely invisible.
Well, I guess I say two things. We as a board would see this issue of getting appropriate specialists, not necessarily a COVID problem. Many of the provincial health systems are overwhelmed, and once somebody releases, do they have a family doctor? Do they not? Now, VAC is working to sort of try to work through our problem. So I think that's more of a more fundamental across the board health system, but we are certainly waiting for a sort of boomerang effect when people come back to normal after COVID. We would expect our, you know, as VAC's work goes up, our work goes up. But certainly, I would agree with Mr. Sauvé. People are focused on other things, so it wouldn't surprise me if we could see an increase after COVID.
Thank you very much. That's time. We are now going into round 2 of questions. Up first, we have MP Carey for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, bringing that down. I'd like to split my time with Mr. Broussard as well. And I want to thank the witnesses for being here today, because I think everybody finds the backlog unacceptable. And the purpose of the meetings, we are looking for solutions. We're looking for specific plans and things that are concrete. And we've heard some things from veterans groups saying that pre-approval would be a great step forward. As a new member of this committee too, I find it's disheartening. Mr. Thompson, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, but I find it unbelievable that the Canadian Armed Forces could dismiss somebody for medical reasons, but then take absolutely no responsibility for attributing that disability. And the fact that they're not sharing this information, that it's not pre-approved, I just find, I don't understand how the right hand and left hand in government can't get this together. I wanted to ask you if they implemented a pre-approval program in your case, do you think there's any downside to that?
A pre-approval program in what
for your
manner?
for your claims, because obviously you're getting a discharge for medical reasons. So the one hand of the Canadian government, the Armed Forces Defense says that you're going to be discharged for medical reasons, but another hand of the Canadian government, Veterans Affairs, says, oh, well, just wait a second here. We're going to take a couple years to figure out if this is valid or not.
So you mean I have been diagnosed with knee problems, depression and stuff like that, and it should be automatically forwarded to Veterans Affairs as soon as they determine I'm being medically released because of these, so Veterans Affairs can start working on it without my even sending in an application?
No, but as soon as things get in, to move forward and just take the word that this is actually a legitimate reason, so we can get started on providing the benefits that veterans need.
Absolutely, I think that would be a great idea. But we both know, and I work in global affairs as well, as I'm moving on from the Canadian Forces. We both know that some aren't, one hand of the government doesn't always talk to the other. Whether or not that is possible, I don't know, but it would be great. We've already been told we're being released medically because of this and this and this and this. Veterans Affairs should understand or take our word that we are being released. We can provide the paperwork showing that we're being released. They should understand that, well, if they're being released for this, then we should be covering them for this.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Mr. Broussard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much time have I got?
You have about 2 minutes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Sauvé, I want to go back to what you said about the Veterans Affairs offices. You mentioned 13,000 members have used those offices. If you go to Veterans Affairs website right now, and I did while you were talking, the Veterans Affairs offices have been closed since March and aren't expected to open since January. What access are your members using for their disability claims right now, if they can't use the Veterans Affairs offices?
Mostly, well, you've seen a slowdown, obviously, in the service delivery and the service access, but mostly are being pushed towards the MyVac account or 1-800 numbers and contact from that. Those that are already in the occupational stress injury clinics and treatments, obviously those are in-person, physically distant, however it works. So they're still going forward, but not the VAC services office are shut down for now.
Yeah, they've been shut down since March, aren't expected to open until January, if that. Mr. Heilman, I have a question for you, and it's curious, more curiosity and a concern. The Canadian Forces medical staff diagnoses are often the reason why people are being medically released, but there's still some reluctance on the part of Canadian Forces medical personnel to provide the details of those injuries that are related to adjudicate the benefits of the claim. Why is there a continuation of this that seems to happen, this reluctance between Canadian Forces medical personnel to provide that information to VAC that would help in the adjudication and claims processing process?
Well, I'm not a clinician myself. I don't work in the clinics. I work at the headquarters, so I can't discuss what would be in the mindset of the clinicians. What I can tell you is that they are absolutely dedicated individuals and are wanting to do nothing more than provide the best health care possible. The second that they have the possibility to offer a diagnosis, they do that. I have not, in my 21-year military career, nor my 6 years at the headquarters working with CFHIS, have I ever seen a doctor take their time to provide a diagnosis.
Thank you, sir. And that's time. Now over for 5 minutes, MP Fillmore, please. And you want to lower your microphone there, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to say sincere thanks to all the witnesses for giving us their time and the benefit of their expertise today. Particular thanks to Mr. Thompson for your service and for sharing some of your afternoon. I would like to follow up on something that you said about information sharing and pose a few questions to Mr. Heilman, if I could. So Mr. Heilman, I heard your reluctance to get into the question of whether it's CAF or VAC that should be in the business of attributing the cause of an injury to military service. But it appears that one way we can avoid needing to change the way attributions are made is to improve the way that information is shared between the departments. And I think Mr. Broussard was touching on this as well just now. So on that point, relating to the backlog, in your view, what information, if any, between the two departments is currently not being shared that would be relevant to a veteran's claim that could be improved? What are we missing here?
I actually don't think, now that we are moving CFHIS directly into the hands of VAC adjudicators, there is no information that is going to be missing other than, and I mean immediate information that will be missing other than paper records that will need to be scanned into CFHIS. That being said, the amount of time that it takes to scan a record is measurable by us, certainly. You know, it can take, for some files, it can take an hour. Some files that are much more complex, it can take a full day. So it is getting much better. I am a veteran. I was medically released, so I have skin in this game. Some of these people are my friends. Some of these people were my soldiers, and some of them were my peers. So I'm definitely doing absolutely everything I can. And I have the full support of my chain of command to do everything I possibly can to expedite this file transfer as quickly as I possibly can.
Okay, so it sounds like some changes have been made with the adjudication that are leading to improvements. That's wonderful to hear. I'm going to be just to the chair. I'll be sharing some of my time with MP Lalonde here, so I'm going to move quickly to one other line of questioning before I yield the floor to her. And this is a question for Christopher McNeil. It's nice to see a familiar face from home, and nice to have you back at committee. I'd like to hear your response to some of the suggestions that we've heard regarding the idea that VAC could use pre-approved claims that are related to common health issues experienced by veterans. If you want to weigh into whether they should all be pre-approved, that's fine. But I'm kind of more interested in exploring, is it a good idea? Which conditions or health issues would be candidates for that kind of pre-approval? Would it create a two-tiered kind of experience for veterans? Is this a fraught idea, or is it a good idea? What are the issues surrounding it?
Well, obviously, when you ask an adjudicator, should anything be pre-approved, of course, they think that's not. But I think it's not a question of everything. I mean, this system is not built on every injury is compensatable. An injury occurring on vacation isn't necessarily related to service. But I do think we are emerging. You know, VAC has invested a significant amount of resources in sort of fast tracking complaint. The one I think of most relevant is hearing loss. VAC is proving probably somewhere in the vicinity of 80, and our experience recently is we're probably taking that to about 90, in excess of 90% of the claims that come forward for hearing loss are being approved, particularly if somebody demonstrates a diagnosis that at least in part is attributable to noise. Nobody's post-service working, it compares to the noise. So in those cases, that's a public policy decision. You could say if a veteran comes forward today and demonstrates a noise-induced hearing loss, you could grant those. The small percentage that might kind of get caught in the loop is a public policy question. There's probably merit in certain types of claims in improving those. And if you took hearing loss out of the system, it would open up capacity for others. But hearing loss is the one that our experience would say we're getting to a point, if we're approving 90 plus, 95% plus, we could probably do a cost benefit analysis to say pre-approval might be the way to go on hearing loss.
Okay, very helpful and nice to see you, Chris, and thank you for that. And I'll now yield the floor to MP Lalonde.
I'm going to suggest that MP Lalonde keep her question. She's got about 10 seconds. So
Oh dear.
I get
My apologies.
She will get an opportunity. I see her on the list here in a few questions. So if it's okay with you, I'll move on to MP Desilets, please, for 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much. And my question is for Mr. McNeil or Mr. Bouchard. And hello to you. There is a enormous number of employees in Charlottetown, and with regard to the delays for francophones, which are much longer, I think 24 to 45 weeks for francophones. And I know that in the past there was a great deal of political discussion about this situation, and Quebec, we have very many veterans, and could we not have a sub office in Montreal or Quebec City where there could be employees who might also be veterans who could work in French and would help you reduce the backlog? Thank you very much for the question. It's a pleasure to see you again. I'm not the best person to answer this question. You have to talk to the ministry, whether there might be veterans, for example, francophones available in Quebec, in the region. And I think that at the tribunal, we don't, at the board, we have 7 new people, some people, especially bilinguals, and we're going to continue to do that, and I hope that will help reduce the backlog. Thank you for the answer. So you say that there are 6 or 7 bilinguals who have been hired? Yes, on the new center, and they're all working from Charlottetown. Yes, all our staff work here in Charlottetown. I don't know if Mr. Sauvé has any ideas about that. Would you agree that there would be good to decentralize, go to where there are regions, areas where there are francophones to reduce the backlog?
But I'll allow for a brief answer, please.
I think having services where services are needed is a very good thing. If that means decentralization, it means decentralization.
Compris.
Thank you very much.
To MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Howman, if I could ask you a question. First of all, I want to thank you for your service and thank you for sharing the skin that you have in the game. I really appreciate the hard work that you're doing, and I know that obviously it matters a lot to you. One of the things that we've heard, especially in the last testimony that we had, is the former military ombudsman actually talked a lot about having more responsibility given to CAF to diagnose, tell people where they are, and then pass that on to VAC, and just have VAC be more of the implementation branch of this process, because we know that so many people are getting held up in that transition between the medical records process, although I appreciate the work that you're all doing on fixing that, and then allow VAC to implement, but then also do any sort of follow-up on injuries that may come at a later time, because we know that some folks walk out the door of CAF and then several years later find out that there's something else that is a challenge for them. So I'm just wondering if you've heard about what the former military ombudsman has said, and if you have any thoughts on if that is a process that would actually work and help us streamline this process so that our veterans get the support that they need in a more timely manner.
I'm assuming you're speaking about Mr. Walborn?
Yes, I am.
Yes, so Mr. Walborn and I met when I first took over the job. I had several ideas about how I wanted to expedite file transfer to VAC. So I did work quite closely with him. We met just one-on-one and shared some of our ideas. And what I'm seeing today is some of those ideas for expeditious file transfer come to fruition. Specifically, the grand vision we had was to get the electronic health record directly into the hands of Veterans Affairs, and I'm happy to say that that we have started that, and that it has proven to be successful, and we have been able to give Veterans Affairs direct access to the health record. And I will tell you that the Commander Major General, or the Surgeon General, Major General Bilodeau, and the Commander Admiral Patterson are both very close to their friends in Veterans Affairs, and they're dedicated to closing the seam and working collegially with VAC to expedite this file transfer and get it going as quickly as we possibly can.
Thank you very much, sir. And now for 5 minutes, MP Wagenthal.
Thank you. Am I on?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay. So first of all, very quickly, Mr. Hillman, you've mentioned, first of all, thank you for what you're doing. This has been a long time in coming, as you are aware, and this term closing the seam has been part of conversations at this committee since 2016. So you've mentioned a couple of times things around the electronic records that you're getting to VAC now. However, you say when VAC requests, and as well you said when the member requests. In looking at this down the road and the potential for more cases out of COVID, we want to be ahead of the game. Is there not a way for Canadian Armed Forces to, right now, create a form that goes out to every member and says, so to expedite your case if and when it would be needed, please sign here that you recognize that your files will be available at VAC immediately, and that you, by signing this, are agreeing to have those files transferred to VAC. Would that not work? Just yes or no, or a quick explanation of why?
Yes, ma'am. Technically, anything is possible. I'm not aware right now of what the transition group, who would be specifically responsible for that piece, where their minds rest on that specific item. But I will tell you that the second VAC asks us for a file, it is a simple click of a mouse to add that person into what they can see.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I just have a lot more questions, but that answers it. Thank you so much. Very quickly, you say you have 6 adjudicators now working through that system. How long did it take to train them, and how many files are they dealing with on a day-by-day basis?
I don't know how many files they're dealing with on a day-by-day basis. That's a question that my friends at VAC would have to answer.
What about the training?
And it took us no more than a day or two to do the training.
Great. Mr. Thompson, I want to thank you so much for your service and your bravery, even in standing here before us today. I'm sure you're familiar with the term sanctuary trauma, and I can't help but sense this whole process of waiting and waiting and waiting has had a negative impact on your own physical and mental health. I just want to quote something from Mr. Gary Walbourne when he was the Ombudsman for National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces. Back in 2018, he said, "The Canadian Armed Forces knows when, where, and how you have become ill or injured. The Canadian Armed Forces should tell Veterans Affairs Canada that the illness or injury is attributable to your service, and this determination be accepted. This recommendation would significantly decrease wait times for veterans services and benefits." And we're talking about the wait times based on that time when you are medically released, not other conditions down the road. He says, "I made this recommendation in 2016, and Veterans Affairs Canada and the Canadian Armed Forces keep passing the hot potato back and forth, creating some very fanciful excuses as to why it can or cannot be done. The only thing they seem to agree on is maintaining the status quo at all costs. That is a problem for bureaucracy. It serves itself." Now, in fairness, I'm going to say I'm hearing improvements in them working together to make this seamless transition become a reality for those of you that have served. I'm just wondering if you're aware that only 25% of CAF members who apply for disability benefits, and they do that prior to their release. You mentioned that you wished you had done that. Were you aware that that was a possibility?
Yes, I was. I didn't expect to be medically released as quickly as I was.
Okay.
And I personally dragged my feet a little bit on it. Once I knew that I was being medically released, I did start the process.
Right.
But like I said, it's just taking
I appreciate
far
that.
too long.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And part of the dynamic, I'm sure, is just dealing with the reality that you're now facing, that you're no longer part of the armed forces and you are being medically released. So what paperwork did you receive explaining why you were being released and who provided that to you?
I received a notification from the Directorate of Medical Policy saying you are being released due to this because you don't meet the universality of service, and this is your release date. I was able to request and be granted an extended period where I was able to look and find a job, which happened very quickly. But
okay.
It was a 3-year period, and that 3-year period's up, and I'm still waiting.
Right. Okay. Well, I really appreciate that. And the truth of the matter is, what we want to do here is take everything off the table and make it work properly. And so the fact that you left knowing exactly what your conditions were for why you had to leave, how were you able to provide that information to VAC?
I was hoping you were just wrapping up there. I'm sorry, you're out of
never.
time. Never.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Problem.
Thompson.
And up next for 5 minutes, we have MP Lalonde, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to say thank you very much to all the witnesses who are appearing to this committee today. And Monsieur Bouchard, je vais juste prendre l'opportunité.
Mr. Bouchard, I'd just like to thank you for your work in improving Francophone services within the government. It's always a pleasure to see we have a good champion for French. Thank you.
And I want to say, and certainly as your local MP, I want to say thank you for your 30 years of services. When you reached out to our office, it was, I think, one of our staff members that spoke to you, and certainly I think it was important when you reached out to us that as we were looking at the disability and the backlog, that you have a chance to share with us, what's happening to you. So first, I want to say thank you for your 30 years, sir, of serving our country. I appreciate, and we all say thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I certainly share your concern in that, and certainly, regarding the lengthiness and the fact that the process and everything, and that's why we're studying this. But maybe you can tell us, in your own words, a few recommendations, Mr. Thompson, that you feel very strong to say, Marie-France, this has to take place. These are aspects that I think will help not only myself in my circumstances, but other veterans in our community.
First and foremost, hire more people to process the applications, more adjudicators to look at it and make the decisions. The claim with regards to my knees has been with the adjudicators for I think 2 or 3 months now, and still nothing. And when I talked to them, I was told 64 more weeks possibly. Over a year more before a decision was made. And as I said, I just had my knee replaced. So 64 weeks and not being able to do even the simple things like shovel my driveway, clean my house properly, because walking around, you need your knees, and it's painful.
And that's the other thing that I heard, Mr. Thompson, the pain that you're experiencing. And I'm certainly want to sympathize for that, because that's also unacceptable.
The the pain is always there. I had gotten used to knee pain because I've been dealing with this for so many years, but I was not expecting the pain from a knee replacement to be as much as it is. I actually had to take one of my happy pills to be able to make it through 2 hours of the meeting.
We're sorry we were late. So just to go back on some of the recommendations. So we've talked a little bit about, you know, the work that's being done, and I know it doesn't seem to be going as fast as we hoped so. But the information between both the Canadian Armed Force and Veterans Affairs in terms of transitioning the information, do you think that is very relevant in terms of, you believe that that would certainly help further?
I think it would. If as soon as the military has decided a member is going to be medically released, that information should be forwarded off to Veterans Affairs, because 9 times out of 10, I believe that veteran or that member will be submitting an application if they haven't already. If that information is already in Veterans Affairs' hands, that should, and the Mr. Bouchard could verify or deny or argue it, that should help in the length of time it takes to complete a file and have a decision made.
Thank you. Thank you again for presenting. And Chair, if I may, I would like to ask Mr. Bouchard une question to how Mr. Thompson has answered his question, mais aussi par rapport au travail.
With regard to the work, supplementary work, to have more access to Francophone services, but maybe you could talk about efforts over the past few months to increase French services. I can just talk about the board, and I can certainly say that Veterans Affairs receives decisions in English and French as soon as they're ready, and I heard that Ms. Wagenthal who say that and I would like to say that if there was a letter that informed people and gave them an opportunity to send information directly to Veterans Affairs, I think that would be a good way to increase efficiency. Thank you very much.
Now that brings us, folks, I'm afraid, to the end of our second round. We are at about 5:26, and I did ask for the committee at the beginning to indulge me for some committee business time at the end. So unless there's an objection, I think we should move to that. I want to thank all of the witnesses for taking the time out to contribute to this study. All of you have contributed in one shape or another to help not just this study, but leading up to all the work that you've done daily, leading to this. So thank you so much for being here. I will ask that you log off of the call of the Zoom so that we could proceed with committee business. And I'll give just a moment to do that. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, committee.
Excellent. Okay, folks, we are going to be live here. We're not in camera. Normally, we would be doing committee business in camera, but there are a few things that we do need to get done, and I didn't want to keep everybody an additional half an hour to log back off and log on again. So just be aware that we are not in camera. First and foremost on my list here, I just want to identify and get agreement from the committee to adopt the study budget. Normally we'd be in Parliament. We'd have the paperwork in front of us with the breakdown of all the budget. I can assure you, one of the positives of COVID-19 is the budgets are a fraction of what they used to be. So I can tell you from direction from the clerk, the high end on the budget is going to be $3,250. And that is a very that's if they send out everybody a microphone and so on. But I'm just hoping we can get agreement from the committee to move forward on that budget. Any questions? The clerk is willing to answer any questions as well. But normally a committee of this length would be in the tens of thousands of dollars to put on with travel and hotels and all that sort of thing. So $3,250 I think is very reasonable. No discussion? Excellent. So we agree moving forward. Just a reminder to please send the witnesses on the study of the Royal Canadian Legion and other veterans organizations and their financial health during and after COVID to the clerk by Wednesday at the latest. But if you have some names already, the sooner you can get them to the clerk, the better. She's calling people as she gets them in order to get them lined up in time for our meetings. Regarding the study, we did not specify how many meetings we would hold. I would ask if we are in agreement that if we hold 3 meetings on that study of the Royal Canadian Legion and other veterans organizations, is that sufficient? Is there any discussion? I see a lot of nodding heads. 3 meetings is sufficient. Okay, excellent. We'll move forward again. Everybody's favorite topic, the Whole Foods letter. So you've all received a copy of the response to our motion. Many of you have received outreach from representatives of Whole Foods. I'll just, for the record, we've received a letter stating they had changed the policy but would not be able to appear on the date proposed. We've, through the clerk and myself, we've prepared a response inviting them to contact the clerk to find a date when they would be available to appear. I want to clarify with the committee, if they refuse, if the president refuses to appear, am I to use all the tools at my disposal to get that witness here to testify? Is there any discussion?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
John?
Yeah, so what tools would that be? Would that be, just remind me again what the tools that are available to have him appear?
So we want to recognize, first of all, they have changed the policy. They've agreed to making a sizable donation to the Legion. And in the letter was very clear their support for veterans. But if I'm not mistaken, this committee agreed with MP Blaney's intervention before we voted that we would very much like the president to appear regardless of whether the policy changed, and to work with what I'm suggesting at this point is not to come down too hard with the hammer, but simply to recognize that maybe that date that we provided with that time was not an agreeable time, to give them the option to give us some options working with the clerk in our schedule. If that is refused, my next option would be to summon the witness. Now, this witness, as I understand it, is not in Canada, so the bailiff would not be able to deliver that summon until that person were to step foot in Canada. But I think it would be a very strong message.
Can I just do a quick? Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to remind the chair that that was actually not my motion. That was MP Ruff's motion that came to the Ruff. So that was a motion from the House, and that was MP Ruff that made that?
No. I understand that, but I believe, and I correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't mean to say it was your motion, and in fact, it was Mr. Broussard's motion. What I am maybe I'm misremembering, but I believe it was you who intervened just before we voted, asking us to bring forward the witness, regardless of whether or not Whole Foods changed their policy before the time that they could speak. That's what I was referring to.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I seem to recall. The conversation going that way as well. I guess question that I would have, given the short timeline, like, would we book another meeting over and above what is already scheduled for this meeting? I just need some clarification on that, because we've got a couple more meetings left, and then we do the draft report on this very important subject. And then following that, we've got the veterans organizations and the Royal Canadian Legion and the impact. So from a scheduling standpoint, how do you envision scheduling happening to accommodate this Mr. McKee, I think his name was, from Whole Foods?
I'll have to refer and check in with the clerk to see what our runway looks like, but I think that you're correct. I don't think this is going to be a 2-hour long meeting. I don't know if you guys have that sort of in your mind, as we would want this one witness for 2 solid hours. But I do believe we would be able to get in, now that we're doing 2, and it's confirmed, we're doing 2 meetings a week until we rise for the holiday. I think we have the runway to do it. If we do have to add a second meeting, an additional meeting, I would obviously come back to the committee for that to get permission to do so.
Okay, so you're seeing the potential of a 1-hour meeting then, correct?
I mean, obviously this is the decision of the committee, but I in my mind, I would think that would be sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah, I think an hour is sufficient, but I think summoning him here in some way, shape, or form is an important gesture. We did that last year with the President of Air Canada, and he initially refused, but he made his way, and we got the job done. So I think we have important messages to make.
I want it to be clear to members of this committee who have not chaired a committee before, to use that power is not something done lightly. I have never used it as a chair in 5 years, and so it does come with consequences for the individual. But it's hopefully, my hope is that this could be resolved with just making sure we have a date that's agreeable. And we'll work with his office and through the clerk to make sure that option is the first option.
Well, I think from my standpoint, that option is one that I would agree with. And again, just going back to last week, Mr. Chair, and I think you mentioned this at the onset, this whole situation was precipitated by a misaligned policy, shall we say, on the part of Whole Foods. And the fact that they actually doubled down on it is what caused great concerns among not just us as parliamentarians, but Canadians right across the country. That was in the second release that they issued that morning. And then later on, they came out and saw the ills of their way, shall we say. So, they've said very clearly, as you said at the onset, that the policy has changed. The contribution to the Legion Poppy Fund. We've now got legislation that's going to be introduced in the Ontario legislature, at least, that's going to address this issue going forward. So, to use the hammer, if you will, of a parliamentary subpoena for a company that has clearly stepped back and seen how wrong their policy was, a step back, I think first and foremost is good news in terms of respect that they show our veterans. But I to go that far with the hammer, as you say, to compel Mr. McKee to come, we knew that this was a possibility. I think it was Mr. Fillmore that brought it up. What if, or it could have been Mr. Casey. What if they come out and correct the policy? And I made a direct plea to Whole Foods and Mr. McKee to change the policy that day, and they did, probably not as a result of what I said, but because of the firestorm that was going across the country. So we'll have to deal with it as it comes, but you know, out of courtesy, provide them with some other dates, and then if the dates aren't amenable, then we'll have to deal with it then, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MP Broussard, and I think you do a disservice to the amount of power that you wield.
No, I don't.
I think I'm just I think that's the best way forward, and just a reminder, if we do that, it's not instant. As I said, the bailiff would not be able to issue the summon. It's actually it's referred to as a summons. Would not be able to do that until the witness was actually in Canada, and I don't know if that's something that's imminent given COVID. So if I can move forward, then we'll send back the letter to connect with the clerk to work through possible dates, and I will report back to the committee as soon as I have more information on that issue. Just double checking, and I believe I will double check with my clerk if there's anything that I've missed, but I think we covered everything on the committee business. Excellent. All right, and I've got. Oh, I apologize. I have Mr. Carey has been waiting very patiently with his hand up. Mr. Carey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to say how much I'm enjoying this committee. And I think, as everyone, I was outraged about the policy of Whole Foods. My only concern is, as we heard from witnesses today, we have some extremely important studies, and I just am thinking of prioritizing. I'd really like to get through what we're doing and, you know, decide on what we want to achieve. As Mr. Broussard did say, that they have changed the policy moving forward. They've made it a significant donation as well. So let's see what they come back with, and we can decide at that time. So thank you very much for allowing me to put my thoughts forward on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Wagenthal raised her hand.
And MP Wagenthal.
I just want to say I concur with Mr. Carey and Mr. Broussard on that as well.
Okay. Well, we will see, and fingers crossed. And I assure the committee members that we will make sure that this does not derail the efforts that we have, especially with the backlog study, to get that tabled before the House rises. If nothing further, I'm seeing no other additional hands up. Thank you very much, everyone, and I adjourn the meeting for today. Thank you.